Some of Civilization 7's big changes are much appreciated, exciting even. Others, well, not so much. The first major patch update is here, just released for free across all platforms. Joined, of course, by the first DLC expansion, the controversially extra Great Britain. Now it's all here, we don't just need to read through some lame patch notes. Oh no, let's take a real look at the big changes in Civilization 7's first major patch update. We'll look at the DLC changes throughout the video, laced through naturally, but I want to start with update 1.1.0, of course. This major update tackled a lot of things, and one of them, UI. As you can see, loads of changes, from the text to alignment, through to general updates. Unfortunately, as I showed you in the introduction, I believe that this is a part of the patch that really didn't go to plan. If anything, this actually looks worse than it used to, somehow. It's probably more noticeable. The alignment and spacing issues with the technology tree that we initially discovered on a live stream when the game first came out, well, I think these are actually just flat out worse. And I don't mean to tarnish the rest of the video because we will get to some good changes, but it's important to note here out front that this is not ideal. What is ideal is my second most notable change that came to the UI, and that was around the leader attribute screen. Usually I'd have to zoom in on that thing. However, now it actually looks okay. More generally, I'd say the rest of the improvements were kind of really just fixes. Leader portraits will look better. There's a new icon for natural wonders in the content lens, and social and crisis policies can now be slotted separately when you unlock them at the same time. But there's more to discuss here. The actual highlighted changes come around the geographic society, the victory condition for culture at the end of a game. Here you can see, alongside holy cities that are now convertible, a nice little quality of life change, really most of the stuff here was about that cultural victory. Hegemony switching places with militarism, now requiring nationalism and globalism, and loads of changes to how the exploration unit actually works. How do you actually get the artifacts that you need? Because of course you'll need to house 15 artifacts in order to unlock the victory project. The key changes really actually are just in 3 civics. Firstly, mastery here. Explorers can use excavate action on or adjacent to natural wonders. Natural wonders now providing artifacts. Inside of hegemony you'll see another change here, gaining a free artifact when researching them. Another way to get them, finally, is inside of the future civic, right at the end of the tree, now just one after hegemony, where you'll receive an artifact just for researching it. As far as I can tell, these changes come together actually ultimately to the same conclusion. The geographic society leads on to the World's Fair, and the World's Fair is ultimately still just a project that will cost you production. Now we need to step back, for the next section of this video takes us back to the start of the game, where Ada Lovelace, of course, is the new leader. A paid leader. This is our first paid change that we're taking a look at. She receives +2 science per age when you complete a civic mastery. These options, of course, in both trees. Optional extras, usually worth researching. And while this great British leader is really all about science, this will also help your culture in a massive way. 50% actually of your total science per turn will be converted into culture when you complete a tech mastery. So both mastery options will benefit an Ada Lovelace playthrough. And of course, you're probably going to be playing as Ada Lovelace and Carthage, at least if you're playing this patch when it's first come out. And of course, you've got that paid DLC, for Carthage is the second piece of the paid DLC puzzle. And it's a very interesting civ. Militaristic and economic, it can only have one city. Towns cannot convert into new cities. Is this the Venice I was looking for? Maybe kind of like a Venice Light? Playing around with it, it does seem to be extra fun. Extra fun, not just for the one city thing, but actually for another part here. The colonist, a unique settler. Why would someone who can only have one city need a unique settler? Well, it has +1 embark movement and +1 population if you settle next to a resource. So being resource hungry helps you. It also helps your unique cavalry unit's strength. But the real strength here is every time you train one of these settlers, or merchants by the way, you'll get 2. It's like a buy one, get one free deal every time you produce or purchase a new colonist or a merchant. And that means you can rapidly expand. because you're producing them twice as fast as everyone else. Settle near a resource like I've done here, and you'll grow twice as fast initially as well with that extra population. This is a recipe for rapid growth in the early game, playing as the Carthaginian Empire. I hope it's not quite as powerful as I currently believe it to be. As the dust settles, as changes play out, maybe it'll prove not to be, but when you add the production, the gold, and the production and food adjacency bonuses you can see here from the unique buildings, wow. I mean, you just end up with something that I believe is very fun and potentially very strong, though these are just my early impressions. During this playthrough, I also got to take advantage of Carthage's aggressive expansion abilities to grab one of the new natural wonders. The Bermuda Triangle has been added for free for all players as part of update 1.1.0. However, 4 more wonders, including the one you're looking at here, were added as part of the DLC, another piece of that DLC puzzle. If you're unfamiliar, it's basically 2 civs, a leader, and some wonders. This one provides happiness and culture per age every time an environmental event has provided fertility this age. So those volcanoes, yeah, you're going to want to be settling next to those. Maybe leaning through into more of a mountainous playthrough, though it has suffered. And it's not the only one that's suffered, for there was a rapid and wide-reaching rebalance of the mementos. So let's take a memento to have a look at how they've changed. Sometimes these things were literally stronger than the actual leader benefits you would get. For Axis, they haven't acknowledged that today in the patch notes, so they've taken a little bit of power away here. The first nerve, Joy Use, maybe provides +2 happiness for every cavalry unit. It used to provide +2 per age, so that's a big drawback in the later ages. However, on the flip side, Queen's Jewelry receives the opposite effect. It now works per age, whereas it used to just give you a flat +2 gold on natural wonders. So they take it and they give back. The Great Imperial Crown gives +2 science per age in Towns and Tundra, and this is really a significant knockback for Catherine. Catherine also sees a knockback in terms of the Eagle Banner, which now grants +2% science per great work on display up to 20%, used to be up to 25%. And that's not the only drawback. The altar set also nerfed. It used to provide culture and gold, it now just provides culture on specialists. Sorry about that, Confucius. Though Hatshepsut is maybe a little bit happier, now 10% culture granted in cities. So there are actually quite a few changes here. Cities is a change. You used to have the most wonders out of anybody. Now you just need 1 in a city. However, there was also a thing where you used to be able to get extra production towards wonders. That's been dropped. However, the bans are back. Merchant Saddle no longer provides extra sight. However, the extra movement does now extend to merchants, something it didn't used to do. We're nearly at the end, finally. Pachacuti's Tunic provides +1 sight for scouts adjacent to mountains. This used to be +3, so a powerful combo wombo is gone. The Dong Sun Drum of Trung Truk declaring a formal war against another civilization grants you a tech boost now. This used to have a slightly different effect. Declaring war against another civ will give you celebration. A much more powerful effect, maybe. Xerxes 1 used to give +3 culture and gold for unique buildings and improvements if you had 3 or more. Now that requirement is dropped, but it only gives +1 culture and gold for unique buildings and improvements. And finally, Napoleon's Crown gains 200 gold per age, up from 100 when a war is declared against you. Let's change pace in this section of the video then, and move toward the modern age, where of course Ada Lovelace's native civ is added, alongside maybe some little changes to the UI, or I just didn't notice those before. Nonetheless, Great Britain, Ada Lovelace's natural civ, if you will, the natural choice, is added, of course, into the modern age, and alongside providing a very vengeful naval unit, the interesting change here, the unique unit, is an antiquarian. And this, of course, leans back into the changes that Firaxis have made to the victory condition here in the modern age with culture, right? This is the unit that you'll use to gather your artifacts if you're not getting them from narrative events, however else you may have got them. And now that the culture tree has generally been improved to make it easier to provide you with more options, this should be a stronger finish. As you can see, it's not the only thing the Brits deliver though. The British Empire brings that revenge ship, that vengeful ship I was talking about earlier, specifically dealing 25% of the total damage done to itself to targets. The Brits are also, of course, a little bit of an industrial powerhouse, maybe known for something to do with some kind of industry. You might be able to see that in the manufactory, which provides +5 production, as well as adjacency for resources and wonders. Gold too. You're going to make a lot of gold. And gold is very powerful in Civilization 7, for you can buy just about anything you like. You might not like having to pay for the Brits though, so let's talk about some free changes to leaders and civilizations. Like actually, Napoleon is the first one who can no longer reject sanctions for free. But onto the civilizations specifically, let's take a look at them now. America now receives +2 resource slots upon completing and constructing their unique quarter. Moving on to another modern age civ, Buganda, their civic effect has been adjusted to award 1 happiness and culture on quarters adjacent to rivers or lakes. Meiji Japan has also changed, +1 resource slot on their unique quarter. And if we just step away from resources just for a little bit, there were a couple of small changes in the details for Siam as well. The cost of their action is 50% more than the standard befriend action, and they've addressed an issue where they weren't actually even unlocking properly. Speaking of issues that have been addressed, let's take a look at some of the other big changes. The final large category, before we look at the smaller stuff, was military. Here you can see a list of the changes. At the bottom, it's a lot of bug fixing, addressing the ghost units, for example. In the middle, there's an interesting change that I was very curious about in my last video, what they were doing with the armies, specifically the commander unpacking an army. It would seem now that we have an option to select a hex, like we always did, but that actually matters. The hex that we choose should now deploy the best unit. The hex that you choose, once selected, will deploy the strongest unit in that direction. The next strongest should be deployed on the commander itself, with the remaining units then unpacked on adjacent hexes based on the unpack direction. When I played it out here in the example that you've been watching, I would note that it wasn't actually the strongest unit that led the fight. One of my units, my cavalry unit, had the strongest attack out of any others. Maybe there's a difference in opinion here on what strength is. I don't know how else you'd measure it other than just raw power, 55 versus 50, but nonetheless, I thought I'd show you that. Maybe I'm missing something. I can be a bit of a moron. It is entirely possible that I just missed something there, so I don't want to dog on that too much. I'm just not entirely sure that it's working as I interpreted it from the patch notes. Speaking of the notes, let's return to them now and take a quick look at some other things that I wanted to highlight to you. Firstly, the AI. Really, not a lot of change here. If you thought there weren't a lot of changes to the UI, well, the AI changes were even more sparse, largely related back to that cultural legacy, that victory. The AI should now perform better at doing it, gaining artifacts from natural wonders, researching at museums, etc., etc. We shouldn't see those stacks of doom. They've also fixed an issue where the AI wouldn't be able to spend its points during the advanced setup. Kind of a minor thing, but could absolutely break a game if you were going for an advanced playthrough. Just another way that you could have broken the game. Back to the patch notes, there's a little bit around the political economy. Oil rigs now benefit from warehouse bonuses, nice to see. And the city patron early on, that Pantheon effect has been nerfed. And aside from fixing what I would really just label as bug fixes, like an issue around the crises there, it's really the diplomatic change that you can use sanctions while neutral that's big, and the narrative events really just bug fixes, as you can see. So, all of that comes together to create what feels like a really lightning fast, massive patch that tried to do quite a few different things, and I'm not quite sure if it nailed them all. But if you thought we were done, we're actually just not quite done yet. There were some platform-specific changes that didn't quite fit into those general changes I just highlighted. Miscellaneous ones, miscellaneous fixes, as well as specific addresses on Mac OS and Linux. Couple of bug fixes, probably nothing to write home to your mum about. Console though, a different story. Console not only received every patch that PC has received so far that it did not, therefore your patch notes are larger, but you also received, if you're a console player, some specific changes, and a lot more than Mac or Linux. I'm not going to read through all of them, but I will put them on your screen here, just like all of the rest of the patch notes, if you'd like to take a look through specific platforms, PlayStation, Xbox, etc. Maybe there are some specific issues for you buried in there. And that brings us to the end of a whirlwind look at Civilization 7's very first major patch update. The devs didn't really note a lot else with the patch notes, with the developer diary update, whatever you want to call it. You can see their introduction here, it's mostly the same stuff again. Of course, we are expecting another patch later this month. It'll be another free update with more changes, and the second part of the Crossroads of the World DLC, bringing civilizations such as Nepal. And that brings us to the actual end of the video. My take is that Carthage seems unique and fun to play. Britain maybe a little bit less unique, but I'll need to experience those paid civs obviously a bit more. The patch is only just released, and it seems to be a little bit of a dicey one. I'm not sure that everything was quite fixed or patched as intended. Here's looking specifically at you, that dear user interface. Thank you for joining me, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time.